It's the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm, episode number 173. I am Mike Grimm, voice of the Golden Gophers, and welcome back to the podcast. We're thrilled to welcome back to the podcast this week Golden Gopher football coach PJ Fleck. He's in his off-season, although we know there's really no off-season for college football coaches, but it is a great time for an update on the Gopher football team. They're through spring drills. They're looking ahead to summer school and summer workouts, and eventually fall camp will get started here in the month of August. We'll get the opportunity to catch up with PJ Fleck and find out about Gopher football this week. Our Go Gopher podcast is presented by alumni-owned Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're a business founder planning to exit your business, start by contacting Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. Sunbelt serves more businesses up to $5 million in revenue than anyone, and True North M&A serves companies with revenues up to $150 million. Get a confidential, no-cost, no-obligation business valuation started today. Hey, make the most of your life's work. Visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com today. And our thanks to CEO Brian Slipka, a strong supporter of Golden Gopher athletics, including a friend and a booster for football coach PJ Fleck, who is our guest this week. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union's also a big sponsor of the Go Gopher podcast. Life math is complicated, and Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union makes it easier with local financial experts available to help in person or virtually. You can go to affinityplus.org/GoGophers for more info. The Go Gopher podcast is also presented by OnX Maps. Find out how to download the OnX Fish app for free by listening to the Go Gopher podcast. We're podcasting episode 173 from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We invite you to subscribe to the Go Gopher podcast. It's free to subscribe. You can also go back and listen to the Go Gopher podcast from previous weeks. Last episode, for example, we had Big Ten hammer throw champion Kostas Zaltos with us in studio. This week, we're talking Golden Gopher football with head coach PJ Fleck. He'll join me next.
I'm Clay Geary, walk-on turned scholarship wide receiver for Gopher football.
And I'm Ben Utek, U of M alumni, Super Bowl champion, and Tony Dungy Uncommon Award winner.
We understand championship culture, which is why we're part of the True North family of companies.
True North invests in only elite teams, like the champion team at Sunbelt Business Advisors, Minnesota's largest seller of companies. To learn more about True North and our diverse family of independently owned companies, visit TrueNorthEquityPartners.com.
Keep the good times rolling without the regrets. Giggly THC beverages are your go-to for bold flavor and smooth vibes. Zero alcohol, no bad decisions. Just THC-infused cocktails, seltzers, and teas packed with natural ingredients and performance-boosting superfoods like ashwagandha and ginseng. Find Giggly at over 500 locations like Total Wine, MGM, and Cub Foods, or shop online at giggly.com. That's GIGLI.com. Ready to upgrade your drink game? Use the code Giggly North, as in Giggly Talk North. Giggly North, GIGLI North, for 50% off your first order. Giggly, sip smarter, feel better.
It's episode 173, and it is our pleasure to welcome the head coach of Golden Gopher football, PJ Fleck, back for visit number 2. It's about every May now we've done this, last May and this May.
I love this time of year, Grim. Yeah. You can have me as long as you want this time of year. I love it, man. I'll sit down and do an interview with you anytime.
As we did last year, we're sitting here. I'm on the couch. You're on this fancy chair in your office. It's not a downtime for you, but it is the off season. So what is a college football coach doing now this time of year? As we talk, it's the last week of May, first week of June starts next week.
Yeah, coming off a Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully everybody had a really good weekend, enjoyed the weather here in Minnesota. It was perfect. I mean, it was awesome for 4 straight days. So hopefully everybody got on the lakes and enjoyed some time outside and really got to enjoy what Minnesota's all about. And May, June, and July, there's no place I'd rather be than Minneapolis, that's for sure, especially with what we have to offer outside. But once we get done with Memorial Day, Grimmy, what happens is we get into our summer workout. Our 2.5 months of prep really before we hit training camp, and our players are all back. They had their first workout today, which has been really good with us. And our coaches are back and forth. So we're back here coaching our players, meeting with our players, doing some on-the-field work with them as well. Strength staff is completely separate with that too. But then now we start getting into camp season where we'll travel all over the country, look at some players throughout the week, get with our players during the week, and then on the weekends have official visits starting here very soon. So we're pretty busy.
Yeah, it's there's, like I said, there's never a downtime. There's just doesn't happen to be games right now for you guys in terms of actual competition on Saturday.
Well, there's all that, like, I don't know if it's stress-free or pressure-free preseason belief. It's starting something in the summer. You had winter conditioning, you had spring ball, and now you hit the summer. It's an anticipation, it's excitement. You can start to see, like, the NBA's winding down, the NHL's winding down, and once the Stanley Cup gets handed off and once the NBA final trophy gets handed off, you see this shift towards college football and the NFL really quickly. And we're getting closer to it. So I think there's just that fun and anticipation that makes it this time of year.
Yeah, I see the Vikings have started OTAs this week as well out at their place. So it is getting there. I think you have talked in the past about, the last few years it's been in Indianapolis, is when Big Ten Media Days hit, which will be the last week of July. This year we'll all be out in Vegas, which I know you're not. You're fine with that. You enjoy
we
Vegas.
love Vegas. Yeah, we love Vegas.
But that's kind of, I think you've described it in the past, is that's kind of when the pit in the stomach starts, because fall camp's there, the season's there, and it really is the passing of the torch, I suppose, from the spring into the summer and then into the real stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you're about a week out from training camp once you hit Big Ten Media Day, and us going out to Vegas will be great experience for our players. We're really excited about doing that, bringing some guys out there with us. We're a few days from announcing that, but I still got to inform them. I think today I'm going to inform them of who's going out there.
The guys you're bringing.
The guys we're going to bring. So we're excited about those guys. Excited about Big Ten Media Day, but we got a lot of work to do until then. May and June and July we talk about the best teams that can create that player-led mentality when really the coaches are here, but we're also away. And then once we hit July, you've got some vacation time for coaches, where this is where a team really becomes a team. And you start to see what that can happen in January and February. And then you come together in the spring ball. But then when you get to summer, it's, again, we're there a little bit, but it's really the players investing in the players and really creating this player-led team on their own. And that's what you want to be able to see with that gratitude and that humility and that empathy start to really form, and then that work ethic for each other, which the summer always brings. Years
ago, certainly when you played, and I suppose early in your coaching career as a head coach, it used to be that coaches didn't get to do much with the team in the summer. It was mostly the Dan Nichols of the world that got to do stuff. I don't know, was that 5, 6, 8 years ago? I lose track of time. That things change. You get some hours with them. You get to coach them a little bit. I think they finally said, look, they're all coming back anyway. You might as well let the coaches coach them, and for development of everything. How much can the coaches now work with these guys? And you mentioned it's important the players do some stuff on their own as well here in the summer.
We get them for a little bit of time on the field. We get them for the individual stuff. There's nothing that we can do that's practice-wise, like OTAs or mini camp, kind of like the NFL. We're not able to do that just yet, but we can get on the field and do indie work with them. We have some walkthroughs. We got meetings. Then the players run their own practices on their own, and they're able to do that with us away. They got their strength and conditioning, their speed training, their conditioning. They've got the practices. They got the stuff with us. So plus school and summer school and a little bit of social life in there. So they're busy all summer, that's for sure. And I think that's one of the things when they come here as freshmen. I think parents always ask, what's the hardest transition is, a lot of parents, we got a summer vacation planned, and we're going here in June and July. I'm like, well, you're probably going there. You're probably not going there with Tommy,
he's staying.
Tommy's staying. I think sometimes the summer in high school versus the summer in college is very different. Our players are all in summer school. They're all doing internships as well. So they're really busy in the summer. It's really become full-time from January all the way through December. I mean, where players are on campus and really investing into themselves, their team, and their university and their futures.
Is there a sliver of time from this week when the guys come back to maybe when the semester ended, a month ago or so, I suppose? 3 weeks? I don't know. How long is that?
Yeah, they got about 2.5 weeks. Yeah. It was about 2.5 weeks where they got a chance to kind of go back home and decompress. And I think that really separates the first half of the offseason versus here. All right, now I'm getting into the real football piece of this with the summer, and then obviously getting into training camp in the season. So it's kind of like halftime, or they got a little bit extended halftime, 2.5, 3 weeks, and now they're back. And now it really is, when you look at it, close to an 8-week sprint for them. And then we're right into training camp. So it'll be here before we know it.
You think about everything you guys do, and I know your culture is more than just the games, but when it really comes down to it, it's 12 Saturdays that you're concerning yourself with. But all of those 12 Saturdays, in order to win as many of those 12 Saturdays as you can, a lot of it is won now, right? I mean, from now into the off season, and what kind of advancements each player can make and what kind of page they can all get on. Hopefully it's the same page, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got to rebuild your team and you're just finding issues with your team in season, I mean, you're already behind the 8 ball and it's probably not going to go so well. What you're doing in the winter conditioning is finding out the personality of your team. You're seeing who's going to stay, who's going to go with the portal. You're really dissecting your team from just a conditioning standpoint, a buy-in standpoint, a connection standpoint. Then you get into spring ball and you get to play some football, find out what you really have, what's the strength of these teams, what's going to be the weaknesses. That's really exciting because it's kind of opening a new gift. Then you hit the portal again. Then your team changes again. And now, for the most part, we got some freshmen coming in next week. But other than that, most of the guys that are here that are going to contribute to the season are here. We're past all the portal stuff. This is our team for 2025. And you have an identity, and you know what that looks like. You know who's going to perform, who has performed, who you need to perform. And where that identity starts to really, truly take hold is when you get into the summer, that concrete starts to harden a little bit. And that way you know what the season, not that you can predict wins and losses and what's going to happen, but you have a better understanding of what it's going to look like offensively, defensively, and special teams. What's going to be our strength? What are going to be the things that people are going to, try to expose on us? Where's the depth issues? If you're going through all your contingencies as you start to look at the season. So, the season's going to throw you stuff that you don't necessarily know what's coming, but with building your team and building your roster and having that identity, you'll know how to respond to it when those times come.
So this will be 3 years in a row with 3 different coordinators for some of the defensive side. Now you had Joe Rossi, I guess it'd be 2 seasons ago.
Yep.
You had
Corey Heatherman.
Thank you, Corey Heatherman.
Okay.
Last year,
he's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah,
that happens.
You spend a year here, and the old guys forget names for sure. And now you've got Danny Collins, who has been here. So this is not a new coach per se. What has that transition been like, and what can fans? I know you're not going to give away a whole lot, but what can fans expect to see from the Golden Gopher defense?
Well, hopefully a lot of the same production, right? If not more. But when you look at it from an X and O standpoint, very similar type philosophies. Just remember, it's still the same defense we came here with.
Yeah.
Just different people run it. And I think everybody's going to put their own DNA, their own fingerprint, their own taste on it. And I think Danny's done a really good job of doing that. I think over the spring, Danny found out what we could and could not do, what we need to do more of. I think our depth is going to be our advantage on defense, the versatility of what we're able to do with the players that we have and the pieces that we have. You want to get to where you're playing chess, not checkers. And I think that, when you look at top to bottom on our defense, there's a lot of returning faces, a lot of people who played a ton of football. And Danny's been in the system 13 years, and he's learned from multiple coordinators in front of him that he's worked for and worked with. And now it's his opportunity to put his own DNA and his own fingerprint on it. And I really like what we see. It's very similar to what we had last year, but somebody calling it differently. And somebody has a few different tweaks, and you're just turning the screws a little differently here and there. And I really like the work that him and his staff have put on defense, though, in the offseason. He
was on right after he got hired, maybe within a month or so after you promoted him with JG on JG's podcast. And, we people that are around the program know of Danny and know what kind of coach he is and watch how he goes about it. But I thought he said something interesting in that podcast, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. He said that he had kind of hoped that he would get hired when you hired Corey, and then it didn't happen. But then he said he felt really lucky because Corey brought some stuff to the table that was new to him, that he is now going to implement. As you mentioned, you piece together Joe Rossi, you piece together other people he's been with, and he said it was a blessing that sometimes, man, I'm disappointed I didn't get promoted at that time, and then the time was right this time, and he comes in with another bullet in the holster, so to speak, with a new voice that he's learned some new things from.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part of leadership when you look at it is, I think people have expectations in their mind of what they think they can do, and as a head coach, you're the one managing all the people and leading all the people in your organization and providing opportunities once somebody you feel is ready for that opportunity. And Danny Collins has been growing into this role for a very, very long time. And it's no surprise to any of us on staff or the players that he's a defensive coordinator. But there's a lot of tough decisions you have to make. And, bringing in somebody after really when we went 6-7, bringing somebody in defensively from the outside the results of that season created, I'm going to bring somebody from the outside in. Wasn't that I didn't believe in Danny.
Right.
It just, at that particular time, the best thing for the program at the University of Minnesota was to bring somebody external. Not to run some completely different defense, to run our system, who knew our system, who could give us a different little shake on it and shake it up a little bit, and then for our staff to keep learning from that. And then when Corey moved on, now we have even more bullets in the holster, where now we have the ability to continue to do what we've done, but do it at a different level, see it differently than maybe we saw it when Coach Rossi was here. So now Danny has seen it in multiple different facets and multiple different personalities and multiple different ways of coordinators calling it. And that's always what's really hard is finding the right time that somebody's ready for that opportunity. And that's really difficult because, that's why you're constantly communicating with your staff of what they can do better, how they can grow. And Danny, every time I put something in front of Danny, he's gone out and crushed it that year. I want you to work on this. If you want to be a coordinator, I am transparent, and maybe to a fault, but I'm always going to let people know, here's how I'm thinking. This is what I'm thinking. Here's what I want you to get better. It takes a lot of courage to hear maybe what you're not really good at or what somebody wants you to get better at. You've got to have a lot of self-confidence to hear those things. And as a head coach, you better have a lot of self-confidence too, and telling them that this is why you're not at that level yet, but you can be. And once you cross these off, when the opportunity presents itself, you'll be ready, and sharing that with your staff, because when somebody's expectation doesn't actually meet reality and nobody knows that, that's where frustration sets in. There's that void in between that realistic part and that expectation, and the less you communicate, the bigger that void gets and the more negativity gets filled with. So my job is to make sure that negativity is very small, and everybody understands what they can do to get to where they want to be, here or be a head coach somewhere else or a coordinator, but they have to be able to hear it. And Danny was able to hear it every year. And when the opportunity came and I was ready to make that decision, he was ready for that opportunity. And it was nice that both of those aligned at the right time. And we shared that same philosophy.
Yeah, and I just thought it was cool that he took that in stride and then said, it's better. It was better. It turned out better. This was better than if I had gotten the job the year before, because now I've got more stuff.
That comes down to the trust piece, right?
Yeah.
And it's really hard these days looking somebody in the eye and say, do you trust me? There's a million reasons why somebody shouldn't trust somebody, right? Because you can always hear it from different sides. Oh, they only want this for their personal gain. They only want this for Minnesota, or they only want this for... But when you really peel back the onion and you give people the truth, I think that's somewhat of a lost art in leadership. People want to be coached. Like even teams with the portal, players want to be coached hard. They want to be developed. But there's so many people who are afraid to do that because, this guy, if I offend him, will he go into the portal? Or if I didn't say it right, will it go into the portal? If he didn't want to hear that, will he go into the portal? This is a program of transparency. You might not always like what you hear, but you're going to hear where we are right now. And what we do with the time moving forward is up to us. And I think that's where people can grow the most, with the honesty, with the authenticity, transparency. If you can give people that, you have an opportunity for them to grow to maximize their potential.
You felt the time was right for Greg Harbaugh 3 seasons ago, so he'll be entering season 3 now, right?
Yep.
How do you assess his growth as an offensive coordinator?
I think it's been exactly what I expected, rapid. He's a way better coach now than he was 2 years ago as a coordinator, as a play caller, as a leader of the whole room, of the quarterbacks. He really is the head coach of the offense, and I think he's done a great job of learning what that takes and what that entails of than just being a position coach. I think he's grown up. He's matured a lot within the role. I think that there's one thing to call plays at this level for the first time and then be an experienced play caller. And I think he's at a point where he's has a lot of experience, and you can call him an experienced play caller. He knows what we can and cannot do. He knows the areas that we have to improve. I think he brings out the best in people, and he's got a very clear understanding with a lot of clarity of where we are and where this offense can actually go, and how he can use all the pieces that we have, because we have more pieces on defense and offense than we've ever had. How we logistically put that all together and put that product on the field where we can maximize our offense's potential is what he's been really good at, and where he's shown the most growth, I think. So really proud of his progress, and he's a way better coach than he was when he first walked in the doors, and you can see that with the way he leads our team.
Yeah, and the offense has evolved a little bit, and some of that has to do with the guy taking the snaps, right? Quarterback play will dictate some of what you want to do and not want to do,
if not
right?
all of it. Yeah.
But the offense definitely has evolved under him, and we've seen some wrinkles, and I think it'll be fun to see what's in store in 25.
Yeah, we've completely evolved, and you kind of morph yourself into what the team can do, and you start to stay away from things that they can't do. And I know that sounds really easy, but there's so many plays in football and so many ways to do it and so many personnel groupings that to find the right 60 to 70 that you're going to have really big-time success with this particular football team, finally knowing what our team's going to look like now in the end of May, and then keep tweaking and building the offense to get our team to a mastery level come the season is quite the challenge in 2025. And I think our offensive staff does a great job of that. And hopefully our fans really like what we have and the product we have in 2025 on the offensive side.
Let's jump in here real quick. Want to talk about two of our great sponsors. First, Affinity Plus. It's your local credit union proudly serving Minnesota since 1930. If you're a current Gopher student or a proud Gopher alum, that makes you eligible to join this financial that wants to build a meaningful banking relationship and put you first. You can meet with a local employee at any of their branches statewide. There's one here near campus in Minneapolis on University. To learn more and find other ways to connect, go to affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. That's affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA. People-centered banking, perfect for Gophers. The weather's warming up as well, and that means it's time to put those ice augers away, and you can get out on the lake, get on the boat, and do some fishing. Let the OnX Fish app help you find the next best bite. The Fish app offers the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your success. Use the Fish app to find new places to fish. You can sort by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potential. OnX Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, public and private land ownership info, and more. Right now, download OnX Fish on the App Store or go to onxmaps.com/fish to get more information about the app that's changing the game on the water. We've done, as we mentioned, this each May. Now, you and I and Guardsy, we talk every week during the season out at the Tipsy Steer, and we do the coaches show, and we talk. He talks with you after the game. I talk with you before every game. But in this May time, I went back and listened this morning to last year's podcast because I was curious of, I can't remember everything. I remembered some things. You mentioned, I wrote this down, you mentioned that, because at that point, Max Brosmer was just a name, right? We had seen him at spring practice, but we weren't sure how he would perform. He's transitioning up a spot. You said
a lot of hope and prayers going on at one point. Yeah.
You said in general, I'm paraphrasing here, that Max has become the leader of the entire program, not just offense, not just defense. Everybody follows his lead. Now, a year later, he's not here. He's down the street in Eagan, going to do OTAs this week with that group of guys with the Vikings. So your quarterback spot, do you still believe that position has to be the guy that leads the entire program? And if so, how do you like what you're seeing there?
Yes, and I don't know if I'll ever believe otherwise. Yeah, I think that's just a personal belief I have, that the quarterback is the ultimate team player, the ultimate team position, but has the most on its plate. And I think has to be the example of the standard of what you want in your organization, because he touches the football every single play, makes a decision with everybody's job security, everybody's dreams, hopes, and aspirations run through the quarterback, and including his own on and off the field. And I think that's just, we put a lot on our quarterback. I think there's some organizations maybe don't do that. We do, and I always have for 13 years. And I think our quarterbacks have handled that really well. They had a great leader and a great example of what that looks like with Max. You go back to Tanner Morgan, same way. Right. So we've had a lot of examples, and now it's an opportunity for a young man to do it and hopefully do it for a lot of years. But I think Drake has really kind of gone into that role as a leader and really embraced that with Max's absence. Has really filled that void very quickly for a redshirt freshman, and he's working on it and learning every day. But you can see that he wants to. He has the right mindset to go do it, And now he's just got to continue to learn how to do it at an elite level. And every day it's getting better and better and better. And you can just see the team really trust him and gravitate towards him.
Last year at this time, you also said in that podcast, and not just in that podcast, but generally during spring ball, it was maybe the first time in your coaching career that you told a quarterback it was his job. He's coming in, take over. You're not going to have a competition. You're the starter for sure. You've been careful about this time in this spring saying it's still a competition. You just mentioned, though, Drake by name. Do you feel good enough about him?
I do feel really good about him. I feel good about everybody in the room in terms of their development of what they said they wanted to accomplish and how much better they wanted to get. Bringing in Emmett's going to help that as well as we keep developing our depth at quarterback. He's played a lot of football, and I think that room just keeps getting better. I think, but looking at it from a helicopter view, and you start to look at what Drake's done and the spring Drake had, I think it was better than everybody in the room. But when you look at everybody else, their floor came up too, and they've accomplished some things that that we wanted them to accomplish. And it's still not ready to sit there and say, okay, this is our starting quarterback. But I think everybody on the football team sees the leadership from the quarterback room of what they need to be able to see to eventually, to crown that person the starter, and then also, keep them held to a very, very high standard. That this isn't just all right, let's just if it happens to be Drake, let's feel it out for a year or two. Nope, we have a standard that we want it to be done at and played at, and that standard won't come down. No matter who the quarterback is. But I really like the development, especially with Drake, of what he's been able to do with the whole football team. Took a bunch of players down to Florida in the offseason and kind of has learned so much from Max, but made it his own. This isn't Max leading our team anymore. This is going to be the next quarterback. So really like where Drake's been and where he is, but I really like that quarterback room where they all are as well.
And it seems in this crazy age of college football now, a lot of teams, and I'm just thinking even in the Big Ten, I'm trying to think Drake's going to be one of the few guys who was recruited by the team he's playing for. I mean, out of high school, right? So you had to feel good enough about that because you could have, I shouldn't say easily done this, but you could have gone and gotten a guy with starting experience and said you could have Max Brosmer did again, right? There's somebody out there that would come here, but you felt enough about what Drake has shown you that this is a guy that you feel good about handing the reins over to.
Yeah, I mean, I feel good about the room, whether it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. Like, I really do. I feel really good about their selflessness, their leadership, the humility that's in that room, the competition that's in that room. But I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't necessarily look at it and say, okay, well, if we don't have the ability to start a redshirt freshman, then we're going to have to go out and get somebody who's done it. We went out and got Emmett. Emmett's played a lot of football in his past. Dylan's come on really strong, and you look at Max. Max is a really good athlete. We recruited Jackson. So you've got some guys that. And Dylan sticking around showed he wanted to continue to be involved in that. But I think everybody looked at, if you're just judging based on the spring production, Drake would be your starter. We're looking at it the whole gamut of information, but that's where it's trending. Now, where nobody wins the job in spring, so I think it'd be, besides the Max Brosmer deal, right, because that was what we truly needed because we couldn't rely on the true freshman. But now that Drake is sat behind Max, the rest of the quarterback room has learned that's the standard of what we want. I feel really good about where we're at as a room, and if we have to start a redshirt freshman, I feel really good if it's Drake.
Coit Parrish, on the flip side, he will be a sophomore, started as a true freshman, and we were just talking, he started 3 games last year.
Still hasn't been here a year.
Yeah, still hasn't been here a year. It'll be, next week or the week after. Right. He'll hit his 52-week anniversary, so to speak. Second-team All-American, first-team All-Big Ten. How do you see him, and much of last year, early especially, he didn't start, and you were saying, hey, look, he's going to catch up. He's going to, he's going to contribute. Don't worry. And he got his chances in a number of different ways. So what's the maybe it isn't a tightrope, but is there a tightrope to walk to say, God, he was so good last year. Let's just keep him at what he's doing, or his upside is so much we can throw a bunch more at him and he can be even better.
Well, I think it's the second part of what you said. I think we see him for where he can be, not necessarily just where he is. I think there is a limit. You can always push somebody too far. I think there's got to be a good balance there. I think last year was too less with him. So you don't want to just say, okay, you're going to play 70 snaps on offense, 70 on defense, and we're going to make that work, plus special teams. There's a happy medium. And the only person that shows us what they can do that way is Coy. We go how Coy goes, meaning if Coy shows he can do more, we'll give him more. If he shows he can't do that, then we'll pull back. So it's really up to him. And I think that shows the trust we have in him as a player and the production he has on defense, offense, and special teams. But he's also a football player. And this kid, if you put him out there for 10 hours, he could play football for 10 hours. I mean, He's just going to go. And we as coaches have to be able to watch that, show what's too much, what isn't. But there's not much that's too much for Coy Parrish.
I was going to say, I mean, if you ask him, he's going to say, play me the whole game in every spot, right? And also in terms of him, and maybe you don't want to get into too much detail on this, but I'm curious, as a freshman last year, he made so many plays. How many mistakes did he make, and how many of those did he overcome just in pure instincts and athleticism that, you can mask a few things, and how much can he cut down on some of those mistakes that he made as a freshman into this year?
Well, I think football in general, I mean, there's a lot of great plays that are made off of doing the wrong thing, but they're so athletic and they get away with it. I think what makes Coy really good, though, is he plays at a really high level within the system that he's coached to do, and he's not just going rogue. I would say that he was very limited in the amount of mistakes he made last year, and that's why we started him towards the end of the year because, he didn't necessarily make a ton of mistakes. Did he make his fair share? Absolutely. But he's a guy that's really, really smart. He'll do what's unrequired. What's required through the unrequired off the field, he'll do that as well, and he's fully committed to the process. So when you have a player like that, you trust him to be able to do the things within the scheme to make that play. But, we talk about, the attention to detail within the fundamental, that's one part. Then you got to plug it into a scheme, that's another part. Then you got to be able to plug that scheme under the pressure of the situation and perform. He was able to do a lot of that last year. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see what he can do and what he's capable of. We've got a lot of different packages for him. And it's not just a gadget thing. We want him helping our offense this year and providing even more depth to playmakers on the offensive side, as well as moving him around on defense.
How is that going to work with half the jersey? Can he wear that in a game? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sure Bill Carolla won't let that happen.
Yeah, he probably will not let that happen. Am I safe in assuming that he is, for you guys, he's a defensive player? He's going to play every down he can given the situation defensively. Like that's his spot. And then however many, whether you say 70 or it's 20 or it's 8 or 2, whatever it is on offense.
I think that's safe to say. I think, he is a defensive player at heart, and I think the farther he goes on his career, he could be truly a multi-side of the ball player. And I think that last year you saw bits and small pieces of doses. This is going to be more like medication. Not just a dose here and there, but like consistent across the board on both sides of the ball. And the more he shows he can handle, the more he'll get. But I think him and Coach Harbaugh have a really good understanding of what they want to get out of it. And same thing with Coach Collins. Because when you have a really good player, you want to make sure that player is always out there on Saturdays doing what they love to do, and that's make plays. And I know we have that in mind, and we want to help the football team first. And if Coy's able to do that on both sides of the ball and on special teams a lot, then we'll play him a lot. If we have to pull back a little bit, we will. But like I said, if you ask Coy and you watch Coy, the hard part is he shows he can do it all the time. And I think that's where, that understanding and that trust comes in.
And this is going to sound like, and maybe you don't want to answer it, given the economics now of name, image, and likeness, you're kind of half getting 2 spots for one price, if that makes sense. Does that factor into it at all?
No, now that you brought that up, now it's a deal. You're always looking as a coach how to justify what you're going to pay your players because of now with the new salary cap and the NIL and all that other stuff. Now, there's a lot of changes coming to that, which we don't have to get into on the show. But, it helps when guys can do more. I think when you talk about value, the word value, it's not just what you value. It's about who brings value to the team and how much value do they have. And the more you're valued and create value for yourself and the team, the more you're probably going to get paid. So, if you're doing more, you're probably going to be paid more. And if you're trusted and valued, that's where that price tag comes into play. And that's what that salary cap's all about. So I hadn't necessarily thought of it the way that you just brought it up, but it makes sense that you're getting a little bit more for your money. That's for sure.
I mean, if you're paying him starting safety money, whatever that figure is, and then you're getting I don't know, whatever, a slot receiver spot, a running back spot, a wildcat spot.
Hopefully the deal's already signed, done, delivered. So
maybe
you're working for Coy to be able to restructure his contract. But no, I mean, it gives him a lot of ammo to come to the next contract negotiation. That's for sure.
Well, hopefully he's not listening, and he'll
I'm sure he is.
Be satisfied with what he's got. One of the things when I listened back to our podcast last year that you mentioned about name, image, and likeness, and we don't have to go into too much detail on it, but you said you were reading a book at the time called, or at least I don't know if it was the title of the book, but it was "Control is for Amateurs," and that you felt that the name, image, and likeness actually mellowed you a little bit because there's some stuff out of your control, and you were trying to learn. Because I do think you like to have your fingers on a lot of stuff, right? But you were kind of learning it's out of my control. Just let it go and dial in on other stuff. Now, a year later, do you still feel that that's the case? I
do. Because you're always looking at yourself of how you can grow as a husband, a father, a coach, a mentor. You're always looking at yourself of how you can get better. A lot of that's dictated by the changes that come your way outside of your control. I think anybody can relate to this because when I just say controls for amateurs, I'm not just talking about a head football coach who's in charge of 100 and some players, donors, boosters, education, academics, players' lives, your staff. You're going on and on for this big organization, and most CEOs like to have their hand on everything because it's their name at the end of the day that gets judged when it's judgment time on the field in wins and losses. And you get credit for the wins and blames for the losses, and you give all the credit when you win. You take all the blame when you lose. And so you can always be better. But just like a teacher in the classroom, most of the time the teacher's got their hands on those 35 or those students of what all their teaching styles are. How can you make the whole room grow? I think you have to know all of it. But to say that you can control all those grades in that classroom is probably a little blown out of proportion. And I think what NIL and the transfer portal have done, I think they've taken a little less control, and even the salary cap, less control out of the head coach's hands, not from a way of like, you're not running the organization at an elite level, but there are some things I can control and there are some things I can't. And if I spend all my time and energy in a negative way worrying about or being discouraged about things that there's nothing I could have done about that, but I could do better in the process leading up to that, then why wouldn't I want to focus on that? And that's where I think I mean, mellowed out maybe is a really good word for it.
Yeah.
I think people might think that I'm just the same as I was 9 years ago when I got here. I'm really not. I've evolved. I've grown. Especially with the time, I think that I've adapted. I maybe not have changed who I am and my beliefs
and the principles
and my principles, ethics, and morals of how you run a program and what you firmly stand on. But I have adapted to how I've run the program, and that's part of it is allowing the people who do what they do best to do it their best and maybe not be as involved in it as I've been in the past, or thinking that I can control that and do it better. So it's really forced you to step back because if you don't, you're just going to beat your head against the wall and get nowhere. So taking the energy and directing it into certain areas that have made me focus more of where that directed energy needs to be and where it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, that's what you said last year. You said basically you didn't want people to think when you said that it meant you were just slacking off. You said you're working harder than you ever worked. Is that still the case as well? That
I would
you
say
just
yes.
Directed it into a
different because I think you're also working harder than you ever have to uphold what you want to do to change,
right,
or to adapt. Like it's harder to adapt because you need more sustainability and you need more time to do it. And trust that process. And if trust is time, consistency, and proof, then that takes a while and it takes a lot of work. How many of the people that are listening say, I'm going to change as a husband, or I'm going to change as a father, or I'm going to do this now? It's like New Year's resolutions. By February, they don't exist anymore. How can you truly say that you're going to do it and actually get it done? And I think that's where I've worked on myself more than I ever have. And when I say that I'm working harder than I ever have, it's not just I spend more hours in the office, and that means I'm working hard. That doesn't necessarily mean that. But is the quality that's coming out better than it's ever been? And I think it is.
Last one along those lines, because you're working harder and the landscape has changed, are you able, did you and Heather, did you get to do a vacation? Did you get away, or does that come up in July?
It usually comes up in July, but we were able to get away for a week. And, we got a chance to go to Italy.
Oh, nice.
Yep. And that was a really quick trip. I mean, we saw 4 cities in about a week. But go figure, that's kind of a Fleck vacation. If you've ever watched National Lampoon's European Vacation, where they kind of look at one thing and like, yep, there it is, and boom, they're in the road to the next. That was kind of us in Italy. But it's always good to get Heather back to her home country. And she had never been to Italy before. We have a friend that has a place out there, so we're able to kill 2 birds with one stone. But it was really amazing. And the advice I give our players a lot, they always say, Coach, give me one piece of advice for my life. And you can give them all the things that are within the culture and the program and row the boat and blah, 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 blah. I tell them to travel and travel internationally. I think when you travel internationally, it brings a lot of humility to you. It makes you feel small again. You go out there and talk football, they think you're talking soccer. They have no idea the university system. They have no idea, a lot of them, even the National Football League. There are billions of people in this world, and you're a very small speck.
Most don't care about Gopher football.
Most don't care about it, and we consume our lives about it, and we pour our lives into it. But when you put it on the grand global scale, it's very small. And I think that the more time people can spend being humble and being humbled, in a good way. Not that everybody's out there, being cocky and arrogant. I'm just saying that I'm talking about your own issues and your own problems that you have and your family issues you're going through, or your team's not winning, or you're going through a marital issue, or you're going through friends and family and disconnect. When you travel internationally, it brings this small perspective to you in a really healthy, good way, I think. That there is more to life than just where we are and what we're doing, and to experience that. And I know everybody doesn't have the means just to go out and travel internationally, but it's becoming easier and easier. And it's the one piece of advice I give our players when they part here, and even spring break. Tell them, go somewhere internationally, go study abroad, go expand your horizons as a human being. And I never traveled out of the country until I actually became an adult, and I wish I would have done it earlier in my life, to see different cultures and adapt to certain different cultures and how different people do things. And I know this, we ate our faces off.
Yeah.
And
lots of pasta?
Lots of pasta, lots of carbs, had really good wine.
I bet.
And we both came back lighter than when we left.
You probably got a lot of steps in. Walking.
We did, but even the food makes you feel different.
Better,
And so, I don't know. We came back. Heather now she got her own pasta maker, and here we go.
What 4 cities?
We went to Rome.
Yep.
Which was great because I taught ancient Rome. That was amazing. We have such a small history in the United States that's really been documented and celebrated, and we've got our own issues as a country. But when you look at it, we're very young. And then you go over there and you're staying in hotels that are 800 years old.
It's crazy.
You're looking at churches that took 140 years to build. You're walking on streets that are 1,000 years old. You're going some before BC. So you're talking like thousands of years old, and it blows your mind that people were able to create this. So we went to Rome, went to Florence, went to Tuscany, did a little wine country. Then we went up to Venice, and actually we're in one of the hotels that is one of Jeff Bezos' options, I think, to have his wedding there. I think he has multiple options that he's created. Really? I think it's a secret, but beautiful property. And then we went out to the Amalfi Coast.
Yeah.
So we were grinding. We were grinding.
It's a great. We went in 2018, the family, and it was great. Florence was my favorite stop because they invented the T-bone steak in that city. So we had some steak Florentine. Unbelievable.
Yes.
How they cook it. They snip it with those tin snips. It was nuts. Did you see the Vatican?
Yes.
Yeah, that was.
We were there.
Incredible.
Being a Catholic kid,
I'm Lutheran, and I still thought it was cool.
But I'm from Chicago. Heather and I are there the day the Pope actually got introduced as the new Pope.
Wow.
We were actually there with the smoke, and we had just left, and it was amazing because the Vatican's its own country. And what happens is here comes the white smoke, And when you look at it, over the course of an hour to 2 hours, the whole streets of the Vatican fill up. And it's unbelievable how many people rushed in there within an hour or two. But just to be there.
So you were there then?
We were there that
Wow.
day. It was just unbelievable for that to happen. So really, it was one of those experiences you're like, wow, I can't believe we're actually here the day of this actually happening.
Yeah.
Well, the conclave, the movie's out. We actually watched the movie on the way to Rome. So we'd actually, maybe get the chance to be there the day it happened, and we were, which was very surreal.
Well, maybe some divine intervention, you being there, will translate into some great miracle kind of wins this fall.
Well, hopefully we don't need as many miracles.
Yeah, maybe miracles.
Yes,
not
maybe
the
it'll
right
be
word.
on our side.
Yes.
Maybe it'll swing towards our side
swing
here
our
and there.
way. That's awesome. Well, hey, always appreciate it. I know you got other commitments here coming up. Just got out of a staff meeting as well, so we appreciate it. And great to catch up. And that's fun to hear about that vacation.
Yeah, it was tremendous. So can't wait to see all of our fans here coming up for training camp and get them out to the season. What a great schedule we have, and look forward to catching up some more, Grimmy. But thanks to all of our fans, and look forward to a great 2025. So row the boat, Sky and Mile, Go Gophers.
Season tickets on sale now.
Sure are.
Yes,
Go
sir.
get them.
Gophersports.com. He is PJ Fleck, the head coach of Gopher football. It's episode 173. My thanks to head coach PJ Fleck from Golden Gopher Football for spending time with us this week. I know you enjoyed that conversation as much as I enjoyed being a part of it. Gophersports.com for all of your ticket needs. Episode 173 is presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're buying or selling a business, visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com. We're also partnered with Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, a locally member-owned full-service financial invested in you. You can learn more at affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. Affinity Plus, great products, great support, and great people. OnX Fish also sponsors our show. Happy fishing. Again, I'd invite you to listen to past podcasts, and please right now click that Go Gopher subscribe button. It's absolutely free to listen and free to subscribe. And please share the link to the podcast with others so they can subscribe and listen as well. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please let us know with some positive feedback on your social media channels. We'll talk again next week.